Tampa, Florida Governor Rick Scott, R., has been ubiquitous in recent days as Hurricane Irma bears down on the Sunshine State, warning of deadly winds and storm surges and imploring residents to heed evacuation orders. "This is a catastrophic storm our state has never seen," he cautioned at one of many news conferences. By all accounts, Scott and other officials have aggressively tried to prepare the state and its residents for the destructive storm's impact and immediate aftermath. But for all of Scott's vigor in readying Florida for Irma's wrath, his administration has done little over the years to prepare for what scientists say are the inevitable effects of climate change that will wreak havoc in the years to come. With its far-reaching coastline and low elevation, Florida is one of the states at greatest risk from rising sea levels, extreme weather events, including more powerful hurricanes, and other consequences of a warming planet. Local officials, academics and even some political allies say Scott has scarcely acknowledged the problem and, along with the Republican-led legislature, has shown little interest in funding projects to help the state adapt and become more resilient in the face of storms such as Irma. The science has been brought on a silver platter to Governor Scott, and he's chosen not to do anything, said Kathy Bowman McLeod, a conservation expert who served on the Florida Energy and Climate Commission, which was effectively dismantled after Scott took office in 2011. "If there is climate action, it's all coming from local and regional collaboration. There is no state leadership on climate change in Florida, period." Scott has often demurred when asked about climate change and the overwhelming scientific consensus that human activity is fueling it, saying, "I am not a scientist." But he faced a wave of criticism in 2015 after the Florida Center for Investigative Reporting revealed that state employees had been discouraged from using the terms climate change and global warming. One state official even refused to utter the words in a public hearing. The governor's office has repeatedly insisted that no such policy ever existed. Scott's office did not respond to a request for comment for this article, perhaps understandably, as he prepared Floridians to face the historic and deadly storm barreling toward them. Scott's long-standing refusal to acknowledge an issue that many others view as among Florida's biggest threats has had repercussions, his critics say. "It's more than an absence of leadership. There's harm being done by denying the problem," said Eric Berman, former general counsel to the Republican Party of Florida and a former board chairman for the Southwest Florida Water Management District. He's chilled the discussion, so that those who would want to do something about it feel ostracized. "I'm a Republican. He's a Republican. He's a nice guy. There's nothing negative I have to say about the human being. It's just that the policy is 180 degrees off course." Seas are rising faster than in the past, and low-lying Florida, with its tourist-attracting beaches and condo-crowded coastlines, could be among the hardest hit by the change. "It's important we don't hide from reality," said Harold Wanless, chairman of the University of Miami's Geological Science Department and an expert on sea level rise. "We should be doing very serious planning, and it doesn't help when you have a governor and a president who are dismissing climate change." Scott's predecessor, Republican Governor Charlie Crist, arrived in office in 2007 determined to address what he described as an existential threat to the state. "I am persuaded that global climate change is one of the most important issues that we will face this century," Crist said in his initial State of the State address. "Florida is more vulnerable to rising ocean levels and violent weather patterns than any other state. Yet, we have done little to understand and address the root causes of this problem, or frankly, even acknowledge that the problem exists." Crist convened a climate change summit in Miami, created a task force focused on the issue, and signed an executive order to reduce the state's greenhouse gas emissions and mandate more energy-efficient building codes. He also signed a bill, championed by a state House Republican, that would push the state toward more renewable energy sources. "I want it to be upfront and on point when it comes to climate change," Crist, now a Democratic U.S. House member, said in an interview. "It is real and it exists." But when Scott swept the governor's race with support from the Tea Party and came to office in 2011, the issue all but vanished from the state's agenda. Local governments kind of stepped into the vacuum and have led the conversation ever since, said Steve Adams, a former climate and energy advisor to Crist, who oversees urban resilience for the Institute for Sustainable Communities.